think it's a really heavy subject, and this piece addresses it very well. And I think it does a great job of showing both sides. You see individuals who have lost family members because of, mistakes that doctors have made, and then you see these individuals who have these doctors and practitioners and nurses, and you hear their side of the story, and how they move on from that, and how some of them don't. I think it's a really touching subject. I think you present this in a really respectful way, in a really thoughtful way, that just highlights the difficulty of it. There's no it's hard to find like a right or wrong in this perspective, because you show so many aspects of it.
They did a great job of saying, no one is having a good time. It's bad on all fronts. And you have the family or person harmed fighting to be heard, fighting to feel justified, have retribution, getting answers, getting just like an apology, and how painful that is, and going through that process, and the money and the time that it requires. And then on the doctor side, you have your whole career being called into question, and it's already such a stressful job. And, one mistake can be life or death. And we see, as in the second case, where this man who was an incredible doctor and was loved by so many, the process of this resulted in him ending his life. And the incredible pressure cooker that doctors are under all the time, it's just unimaginable. So I don't think anyone really wins here. But I think this really puts into perspective just the human side of it, the emotional side of it, and the impacts that it can have. I thought this was really, really fascinating, really informative.
Well, this documentary had excellent profiles of the interviewees. In 3 cases, we are shown both sides of the medical malpractice world. We can sympathize with the plaintiffs and the defendants. It's heartbreaking for the patient families with loved ones who have died due to mistakes by medical professionals. And it's devastating for families of doctors, such as Dr. Si-Yuan, who took his own life after suffering from depression. And his wife spoke to that so well, with the intertitling that says later that 300 to 400 doctors commit suicide every year. This is shocking. The new corrective action that's being implemented in some states seems to be working, and both sides of the court cases are more satisfied with it. And I think that it's a step in the right direction, of course. And what can they do to get this system accepted more across the United States, especially after 100 years or so of the other route?
I've always thought that honest communication is pretty much the way to go for anything, any relationship. But the fear that people have of being honest in this scenario is real, and I can see why it would be. And I think this really does paint a picture of nobody is perfect. We have a great medical system to some degree, as far as the technology and the people who go to, study to be doctors and nurses and are in medicine, but they are not perfect. We try to look at the system as perfect, but it's not. And yes, there are things. It was so sad to see the case where the man committed suicide, and how horrible in any business when you go into a court and you're being just attacked and attacked and attacked. You are a person. Eventually, that's going to break someone in a bad way. And not just, the guy was being honest too. It's like, if he's being honest, let's not keep attacking. Let's find a solution so this doesn't happen again. I can imagine the doctors are extremely tired too. So anyway, it was just a really great setup. I like that there were 3 cases. I like that you took us through it very well and it was easy to follow.
We see why the system itself is the real enemy here, because it is not currently functioning in such a way that could ensure justice and fairness for both sides. And until that is changed, both sides will continue to find much more negatives than positives coming out of these kinds of unfortunate real life situations.
There were a lot of personal stories of grieving families and from professionals in the medical field, plus those who have been studying the case of malpractice for years in this film. With that being said, you see the proof and the statistics. There's a lot of good, reliable facts and information here, and the stories really do make me sad. Especially the part about the physicians living with the mistakes they did and sometimes killing themselves over it, and the last family being interviewed on how they lost their child and hugged their physician to make sure he knew they forgave him for his careless mistake. It's very heartwarming but also tragic. I think there's a lot of great footage used in it. Like when you hear dialogue but you see the inside of the ER room and the bed with the heart monitor. It's visual storytelling at its finest, and I'm also transported to the serious dark world of this film.
I like how this piece touches on different perspectives of the issue. They don't just focus on one, and I like this openness and honesty, gathering testimonials from different perspectives. I think that was a great approach. We also have this very emotional recounts from people that experience, unfortunately, some sort of medical misfortune and how they had to navigate through the malpractice system. They touch on how they have to fix the system, but this will take much more time. And this is just a culture of covering your back. You, as a doctor in the USA, you always want to make sure you did all you could do to avoid being sued. And this culture is just pervasive and it needs to be fixed somehow. They talk about restoring the trust in the medical practice. And I think this was definitely informative and mind-boggling.
I can say I've not to this point learned this much about malpractice and all sides of it and what it entails. Yeah, it's very interesting, and to hear the experts speak about it, was very informative. This is really well done. It was nicely shot and edited. Like and the interviews were done very well. The folks who are interviewed that spoke did a really nice job of of explaining where they're coming from, what's going on. So everything was put together very well. Yeah, I have a lot of new questions and a lot of new understanding about things here.
It explores the issue from both the patient's perspective and the medical professional's perspective. And I think it does a really great job of showing how much an issue of malpractice lawsuits are for everyone involved. And it gives a balanced view from both perspectives without villainizing and creates empathy for both sides. And I think it brings it all together nicely with solutions for how the medical system can support both patients and doctors in these situations going forward.